I was asked a series of questions because a woman was wondering about the switch up that women go through in relationships, or the red flags that are being ignored, and how it's possible to miss so many red flags. So I was sent the most amazing subreddit thread, and the pipeline from abusive or overbearing or extra strict parents, the pipeline from that to relationships that mirror that is quite amazing. And I want to share a few of them with you. This might require a few parts, so bear with me. This person says, physical abuse in my childhood broke my spirit. I used to be so lively, vivacious. I remember as a little kid, I had a t shirt that said, I love life. My parents literally beat that spirit out of me in the name of obedience. I miss who I used to be so much. Middle school is about the time when I started to change into my current meek, mild self because I had to give in to total obedience in order to survive. I think about those years almost every day. My friends, my school, my loud, uncompromising, vivacious self, romanticizing my past to the extreme. If I hadn't been abused, my life would be so different. They claimed they originally didn't want to spank me, but started at age 3. I was so wild that nothing else worked, and I'll understand someday. I now have a daughter. Oh, I understand. I understand I'd throw myself off a bridge before I raised a hand to her, let alone do some of the depraved stuff they did to me. I look at her and I just can't imagine. I reached out to help. I reached out for help so many times. I told teachers, camp counselors, the parents of friends. I remember I used to be fearless. I even wrote about it in school assignments, but no one ever did anything. Instead, they praised me for being so well behaved and wise beyond my years. Since nobody in a position of authority ever lifted a finger to help, I clung to romantic relationships to the point of obsession, starting with crushes in elementary school and ending with my current marriage. I was obsessed with Disney princess idea that someday I'd be rescued from my abusive home, which is literally the plot of several early Disney movies. The rescuer would be, of course, a handsome prince, so any guy who gave me attention I clung to, hoping he would save me, take me away. I'd never be hurt or lonely again. And all of them took advantage of that. Every single one. I've never been with a man who wasn't abusive in some form or fashion, even though they each had their own special flavor of abuse. I'm sure my trauma doesn't help, but I also think most men are, in general, just like this. Entitled, angry, abusive, sorry, not sorry. You guys can finish reading the rest of her story, but this is how some of these switch ups or some of these bad relationships start. I'll do more. This is part 2 of why didn't she see these red flags and how could this switch up happen? I'm doing this based on this question or these series of questions that was asked. Here's another story. So this woman started this Reddit thread. Why are so many of us in abusive relationships? What's your story? Okay, this woman's story time. Anyone done some self-reflection lately as to why we choose cruddy partners? I have. I'll start. I'm Asian American and grew up in the States, but my parents were natives who immigrated here. So the norm is to beat up your kids to become achievement based. I wasn't bothered by it because it was all I knew. Listen to mom or get in trouble. I was a kid, so I really didn't process this fully. A part of me deep down probably assumed this was love. So when I thought it was love or tough love, I made excuses for my mother's behavior. She just wants the best for me. Spoiler alert, she actually screwed me over now as an adult for her own benefit, and I finally went no contact on her. So when I met my ex-husband, I made excuses for him. I was also used to being obedient, used to my life being controlled by others, and I felt depressed, but I wasn't sure why. I couldn't pinpoint the problem was my loving husband. I got out of it. It took me a year or two to figure out. I think it was him. So now I feel like the biggest fool ever, and I'm in therapy now, not just because of him, but to unlearn the toxic childhood habits and relearn about the world again and what it means to be healthy. So understand sometimes some parental behaviors and, associating toxic behaviors with love because your parents are supposed to love you can start to create the same kind of thing in your romantic relationships and what is considered love. This woman says, I haven't met a single man yet who didn't lie to me, cheat on me, or even abuse me. My soon-to-be ex-husband abused me for many years, finally left after 18 years. I was physically abused as a child by both my parents, so I'm pretty sure that this is where my crappy partner picker comes from. So, another one this seems to be a pipeline, and all of the stories that I've seen under this thread show a very common theme. That is the reason why it's oftentimes important to have some empathy for people and at least take the time to try to understand people's stories without the finger wagging or shaming or thinking that people should have just known better. This next person said the same thing has happened with her friendships and all of her relationships. So just understand that there is a pattern that has to be broken somewhere. I'll probably do another story. Final story for now for how did she miss all of the red flags and how is it possible that they switched up so badly. Last story. My ex is a textbook narcissist. He's insanely accomplished and physically attractive. I thought I had hit the jackpot when I met him. There was always an unequal power dynamic in our relationship, and he took full advantage of that. For years, he had me convinced that all of our relationship problems were my fault and that I needed to do better. Over time, I began to recognize his controlling and hypercritical nature. After I had our baby, while doing a freaking PhD, he began to relentlessly criticize me as a mother, the one quality I had any semblance of confidence in. We did therapy multiple times, but nothing changed. About a year ago, I learned about what narcissistic personality disorder is. And after putting the pieces together, I was done. Took a while to gather the courage to leave, but I did it, and we are now divorced. It has been a gut-wrenching process, but it's also worth it now that I have the freedom to live my life free from constant criticism. For the first 10 years, for the first time in 10 years, I'm not constantly questioning myself or my reality. I'm in therapy, but it's still a hard process it's still hard to process that all of this happened. I still can't believe how well he's able to manipulate others. He's an Ivy League educated attorney, so it tracks. But it's scary that people like this exist. The constant gaslighting had me fooled for a long time. So I share these stories because a lot of the times so many people lack empathy. They really do. They look at their situation and how smart they are that they caught things and how smart they are at not getting taken advantage of, that they cannot see that they might have had a different baseline from other people. And understanding this, hopefully this will help the next time someone shares a story and your first inclination is to wonder, how did it happen? Sometimes you have to look at the story a little bit deeper, and you have to go back to before the relationship happened and what kind of situation created that person who chose to or couldn't see the red flags that were waving. Hope this helps. Anyways, jump in the comments, tell me what you think, like, comment, share.